Okay, so welcome to the 8th day of arena training. So today will be the final day of this arena training, and we're gonna talk about some different topics, and also we gonna looking into the kind of like some new concepts as well, right? So we will be completing the assistant today, and there we will be looking into some new points as well, and also we will be looking into how to deal with state diagrams and also about translation. So that part we will be completing today. And other than that, I'm making a small note before starting the session that these VMs that you are currently working, they will be repurposed within this weekend. So please get all your materials and all your projects copied to the local machine or a place that you can keep your materials, right? Because when we are repurposing these things, then the VMs will be cleared and you will no longer access to these, you will no longer have access to these VMs. So make sure guys that once we are complete this training today, please get them copied to your local machines or a place that you can keep your materials, because otherwise when we are clearing these VMs and when we are repurposing them to another training, so you will not able to get all those materials, and you will no longer able to access to the VMs. So just make sure that you are getting them copied maybe today, right? So it's better that if you can get them copied within today after we complete the training, so you can get them copied, right? Okay, so that was a small notice actually I want to give you before starting the today's session, and then we can start the session now, right? Okay, maybe I'll start sharing the screen, and also we're gonna look into some things. Right. Can I get a confirmation if you can see my screen, guys? Is it visible for all of you?
I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Right. Okay, so what we are going to discuss about in this part, like in the first session of our training today, we will be completing the assistant. So yesterday when we are concluding the session, we just created the virtuals. So if you can remember, maybe I could get those things too. So we were in, yeah, maybe first I'll show you the virtuals. Right, so here, okay, I think there is a issue. Maybe I'll deny it, right? Okay, so we'll have two virtuals that we have created based on the exercise. So we have to have a one virtual which is related for country, and there I have attributes as country ID and country. And I got another virtual which is TRN area virtual, and there I have country ID, area ID, and area. So as we have a connectivity between these two virtuals, we could make an array. So for that, we have a name, and using country ID, we are creating the connectivity, right? So we are having a relationship between TRN country virtual to TRN area virtual using this array. And for that, we are using country ID as the key in order to get this array created, right? So for that, we will be using this array, and we will be creating the connectivity. So I mentioned that when we are looking into the projection file, I'm not sure whether it's already there, but let's see whether if it's open still, then I could show you. Yeah.
Tiny.
So in the
Excuse me.
metadata, yes, yes,
I have
Nishant, go ahead.
I have a quick question. Could you please go to
Yes,
that previous slide? Previous, I mean the Developer
projection,
Studio.
right?
Yeah, projection. So here we are
Okay.
using the TRN area virtual before we
Mm-hmm.
are declaring it. Will that going to be an
This
issue?
one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean here
Actually, I
TRN.
declared this after creating these two virtuals, Nishant. First, I
Oh yeah,
created these virtuals separately, and
yeah.
then only I created this reference, right?
Okay, okay, okay.
Hope it's clear for you. Do you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
anything to clarify, Nishant, before
No,
that?
I was thinking that because you're using this TRN area virtual uh, before the line number 49.
Okay, so we have to first create the virtual separately. After that, since we have a relationship that we need to map
Hmm.
between these two, that's why we came up with this array reference, right?
Okay, okay, right.
Okay,
Got it. Thank you.
right. Okay, then so in order to get the meta information, so now you know that when we create these virtuals, we could visualize them from the service document metadata. So if you access the metadata form, actually the document, you will be able to see these virtuals which we have created as the new element. So if you go here, maybe I could show you in this white. We have, okay, right so here. So it's an entity type, as I mentioned. So we can give the name as TR and country virtual, and for that we have the object key in order to uniquely identify records, and there are set of properties, and six of them actually coming from the framework end: logical unit name, key reference, object key, parent object key, object modified, and object created by. Actually these are coming from the framework end, and the attributes we added will be mapped at the end. So you can see country id and country is mapped here. And if you are referring to the TRN area virtual, you can see same like that we get the framework attributes or the properties, and along with that we get the country ID, area. So if you can see now, previously when we are just deploying things without having the relationship, we didn't get this navigation property. But once we added that to our virtuals, it means when we are connecting these two virtuals using this array, now we can get a array or the navigation property, and you can see that for that we have kind of information here, and there we will be using property object key and the reference property as parent object key, right? So that relationship is mapped here now. Okay, so what we were looking into is now, after that actually when we are like creating these virtuals, after creating these two virtuals, what we did was, so we referred actually the document as well, and based on the document, now you know that in the UIs it's given us some clues what we need to have for these two steps. So we have two steps here in our assistant. For the first step, we are going to have the country ID and country information to be entered, and the other one, or the second step, we're gonna have the area instances recorded which are belong to the country information that we have entered in the first step, right? Based on the first step added information, we gonna add TRN area instances to the second step. So that's the thing that we are like planning to have in our second step UI. So we decided that okay, for the first step we need to plan here a group, because ideally we have a group here. So we're gonna have a group for the first step, and for the second step, since we are going for multiple data which is related to the first step added information, we're gonna have a list here. So for that, we created a group and a list. So if you go to the manage geographic client file, there we have added a new group here as TRN country virtual group, and we are referring the TRN country virtual there, which is we have mentioned in the projection file, and there we have those two fields. And in the list section, we are we have created a list with the name of TRN area virtual list, and there we are referring the TRN area virtual, and there we have three fields: country ID, area ID, and area, right? So I hope all of you are up to this point because we have created this one. And can I get a raise of hand if you are able to complete up to this part? Adding the group list and virtuals. So in the day 7 also I have provided the code. In case if you have missed anything, you can get a copy of that, and you can add them to the necessary files, right? Anyone having any difficulty while you are trying to add these virtuals, groups and list? Anyone need any help? Maybe I could wait for another 1 to 2 minutes until others tried this out. And after that, we'll start with creating the UI element assistant, right? So when we are like starting creating the assistant, there is one more thing we need to do. So I'll mention that at that point, right? When we are discussing about the UI element. But before that, I'll wait for another 1 to 2 minutes. So then you can get the codes copied from here as well if you want, right? After that, we'll start with the assistant creating part, okay? And I'll share the materials which we need for today's training in day 7 folder 2, right? So I'll create a folder as day, sorry, not day 7, day 8, and I'll share the materials there, right? The txt file. Right, so I will share the workspace as well, what we have completed up to now, right? Then it will be easier for you also. So I'll get a copy of this project, and I will be adding it to day 8. So in case if anyone wants, you can get it from here too, right? Okay, right. Maybe we could then continue. So in public share day 8, yeah, last part actually we added the group and we added the list to the manage geographies client file. Hope it's clear for you. So maybe I could give it in the chat as well in case if you disconnected. So this was the list and this is the code, right? For the group. You can add them. Right. So now the thing is, as I mentioned, we could start with creating the UI element, which is assistant. So the thing is actually if we looking into here, like if you are looking into our regions, so regions are available there in order to improve the readability of our code, right? So in that point now, if you have a look, you will notice that we don't have a specific region that we could use for assistant. So what we can do is rather than like keeping it somewhere and like here, we could actually have a kind of a region that we are created. So what I will do is I will get a copy of something like this and I will be adding a new region here and there I will rename it as assistant, right? Yep, right. So I'm going to use this as a new region. Mm, originally it should be there. Maybe let me try it again. So when we are trying to add a new region, it should be there. I think I have to rename it once again. Right. So we cannot actually have two dialogues. So what we can do is we can have as assistant. Right. So yeah, VM got stuck for a moment. Let it get recovered. So it should be in all caps, guys, right? So we could rename it with all caps. Let me get to the point. Okay. Right. Oh, oh, there is kind of a lag, gas, I guess. Right. So you can rename it as assistant here, right? So make sure that you are making it with all caps, right? It should be in caps, uppercase. Right. Right. So you can keep it like that. Then what we are going to do is we are going to create the assistant in this point. So in order to do that, we can get the help of IntelliSense. So if you go through here, you will be see that there is an option that we can get as assistant. So once you double click on it, you will be kind of like getting a skeleton or a structure. So we have a keyword as assistant, and for that we can give a name, and you can see that it is using keyword is there, and we have a service ref. Okay. Here now what will happen is, if you can remember, I mentioned there's point kind of a trick that if we are having a using keyword, then what we should refer for. Can you all remember? So if we are using for, then we mentioned that we have to refer the entity. But if we are using a using keyword, there is something that we need to refer for. So can someone remember that?
That entity set.
Exactly. So the entity set. So here also what we will be referring is the entity set. But currently we haven't created an entity set. So if you can remember, I mentioned that when we are working with a virtual, from that particular virtual, we can create an entity set. Right? So what we can do here is now we can create an entity set using the virtual. So let's try to create the virtual now, right? Let's try to create the virtual using the let's try to create the entity set using the virtual. So what we can do is now here in the entity set, I'm going to get the help of IntelliSense entity set. There for the entity set name, what I will use is something like TRN country virtual set, right? So for the name, I will be using something like that, and I will be referring my TRN country virtual that I have created here. So referring this virtual, I'm going to create a entity set. And this entity set, I'm going to refer in my assistant, right? So I'm going to get a copy. Otherwise, there might be spelling mistakes or other kind of things. So I'm going to refer that entity set, which I created using the virtual in this point. But the thing is now you can see there is kind of like an error giving here. So you don't need to actually worry on that, because since still we are not completed this assistant creating part, that's why we are getting this error. So for now you can just ignore it, because until we finish off the assistant developing part, this error will be keep like this, right? So it will not be like sort out until we done with this assistant creating part. So for the assistant name, I could give something like a meaningful one. So I think it was in the workshop document as well. So what I will do is I will be giving something like a name as this: create country assistant, right? So we have the assistant keyword, name of it, using keyword, and this is the entity set. So what we can do is now here we have created a region and we have added the assistant skeleton to the manage geographies. For that, we have done a small thing. We created an entity set using the virtual too, right? So after that, now what we can do is let's try to give kind of a label to this assistant, because in your workshop document also there is something kind of a label we asked to give for here, right? So we could give something like maybe a meaningful name for this, right? Let's give something like country details as the label for this. Create country assistant, as I guess, right? Yeah. So let's give something like create country or create country assistant. Maybe create country, right? We could give something like that. So I'm adding a label here for the assistant. Label, let's go with create country assistant, since we are creating an assistant here. And now, so what is the major point of using this assistant is, in an assistant, we could define steps, right? We could have different steps to guide the end user to get some data, right? So for that, actually, we have a specific block known as steps, right? We have a specific label or a specific keyword known as steps that we can use inside of a system. So if you go for steps here, you will be able to get some information about that, right? It's known as array of individual assistant steps. So if you can like go through it, you will be able to see that we have a block as steps, and inside of that we can give multiple step, right? So it might be one or two or like that way we can define multiple steps inside of this steps block, and we can give the order that we want. So what is the first step we need to show as the assistant, and the next step, and the final step, and like that way we can give an order of multiple steps in this steps block. So I'm going to use that steps block now. So inside of this steps block, I can define the steps that I want in my assistant. In the first step, if you could see here, in the first step we asked user user should be able to create the header of the record, adding the country id and country information. So we could give the user to give information about country id and country. That's the first step we need to do. So for that part, actually, if you can remember, we created the group here. Now let's try to connect this group with the step 1, right? So with the first step, I'm going to connect the group that I have created in this point, because this group is the ideal solution for the country ID and country. So we are trying to get input from the end user for country ID and country information, so that we have to connect this group for the first step of our assistant. So how to do that? I have to first mention that step, right? So it's the first step I'm going to have. And inside of this step block, I can connect the group which I have created previously. So for that also, I'm going to use the help of IntelliSense. So we will go for group. We don't need to actually have a block there, because we just mentioning the group. So what we can do is we can give the name here. So it's TRN country virtual group, and we are referring it here like this. And also I can give a label for the step 1. So then when we are accessing the label, or when we are accessing the step 1, that window will be appeared with the label name that we are providing here. So we can go for label using IntelliSense support, and there for the text, maybe I could give something like country details, right? So I'm giving a label name as country details, and I have created the group that we have created previously, and I have actually connected it with the step 1, right? So once I done with this, I'll give the code. But in case if you have any questions while we are doing this design or the development, you can ask. So the first step, I have connected the group now. And the second step, we are asked to add the respective TRN area instances belong to the country. For that, actually, we have to connect the list, right? We have to connect the list to the second step. How are we going to do that? Now, we can actually define another step here. Inside of the block, I can add a label. And maybe I can have information or the label as area details. And here, I'm going to connect my list. So what we can do is we can get the list and the reference I can use. Where is the list? Didn't I created the list? Okay, maybe I have missed it. It was there previously, right? Okay, maybe I'll get it from day 7. I have shared it there. Okay, this one, right? So you can get a copy of that and add it to the list section. Then you will be able to use that list in our assistant. So I'm going to use this TRN area virtual list in my step 2, right? Like this. Let me save it. But the thing is, just adding the list like this will not work, because from this assistant, what we are referring is the TRN country virtual set. So we have to make sure that we are making that reference support in this point to get data for this list. So if you go for the projection, you will be able to see the reference that we have created here. So it's in the virtual, it's areas. So we can use that array areas at that point, right? We can use these array areas in our list. We are using that with this list. So for that, what I will do is I will be having here it as areas array like this. Okay, now we have used that connection as well, right? So we have created a connection. Sorry, it's not array part. We don't have that arrays part. It's areas, because I have created my relationship using areas here, right? So you can see now it has the relationship areas, and I'm going to use that in my list. So once we're done with that part, now what we can do is we have areas relationship that I have used with my list. And now when we are working with an assistant, it's not only that we have to define the steps, right? For an assistant, there are some things that we need to add, right? Not only the steps, but there are some other things that we need to add. That's why we are still getting this error in the latter part of our assistant, right? Because when we are defining a assistant, there are some things that we need to actually we must have in our development. So we need to have those things in our code. So the one of that is we have to define a final step when we are working with an assistant, right? So when we are working with an assistant, we should define a final step for an assistant. So how we can do that? Let me show you. So we can get the help of intelligence. We have the final. So you can see now we get the final step. So in the final step, we can do same as what we have done in previous step. So we can add a label, maybe something like final step or something, just to get an idea, final step. And there we can have a description that like, let's assume now where we want to give a description to the end user. So for that, we can add a small description like process completed, you are in the final step or something like that. In order to do that, you can get the help of control space intelligence. So there you will be getting kind of element known as description. And for that, you can give something that you want to show in your application. So maybe something like, let's go for process complete or something. Process completed here. Right. So in my final step, I'm showing a description to the end user that process completed. But still you can see that we are getting the error. So why we are getting it now, we'll consider that part later. But for now, we have added the final step too. Now one thing we have completed. We have two steps and also we have final step added to our code. Let's assume now while we are working with the assistant, at a point we find like when we are like in the final point, we think, okay, I don't want this data to be saved in my database. I want to cancel this process. Let's assume that we might have some requirements like that too. So at that point, in case if we want to cancel the process in between of like when we are filling these data and processing to the next part, we want to have a cancellation of this process. At that point, what we can do is we can introduce a command button, something like cancel, to go for a cancel step. So when we press that command button cancel, then we might able to show a message to the end user that you have canceled the step or you have canceled the process or something like that. So what we can do is we can define a cancel step for that. So whenever we click on the command button for canceling, then what will happen is we will be ending up with this cancel step. So if you go for this control space, you will be able to get that cancelled. So for that, I'm going to have a label like cancel, cancel step, or maybe let's remove that, right? I'm just giving a description there. Otherwise, there is no point of having a label there. So I'll give a message here, kind of a word like cancel, cancelled it, right? So what will happen is whenever like we cancel or we press the command cancel, and if we want to cancel the process, if we go for the command button cancel, we could end up with a step known as cancelled. So then end user will aware that, okay, we have cancelled the step because we are giving kind of a description at the end as cancel, right? So once we're done with that part also, still we can see that error. Now I'm going back to the point which we were looking into previously, right? So we have added the steps block. There inside of that we have add the step 1, step 2, final step, cancel step. But still we are getting an error here. So now let's try to sort this error. So in order to sort this out, actually when we are working with an assistant, there is something that we need to add as an element to this assistant to complete the implementation of our assistant. What is that is there should be a finish command to our assistant in order to finish the implementation or in order to complete the implementation of our assistant. we should have a finish command at the end of our assistant if we want to complete our implementation. So for that, let's try to get it like here. I think, okay, we have to get this on top, right? So let me get something like here. Okay, after the curly brace, I'm going to add the finish command like this. So this is actually referring to the steps block. After finishing the steps, we can add this finish command at the end of our assistant. And inside of the finish command, we can implement what we want. Maybe let's go with enable, and here I will add it as true, just true, right? Okay, now you can see now the error is not showing anymore because we have added this finish command to the end of our assistant. Until you adding this finish command to the end of the assistant, you will not able to complete this implementation. So make sure guys that when you are implementing assistant, you have to add this finish command to complete the implementation of your assistant. So actually it has a specific name, like we cannot actually give any name for here. And also there is a specific implementation for this which coming from the framework too. We cannot actually customize that part, right? That is handled by the framework, this command finish command. So the specific, it has a specific name, the finish command, and this implementation is coming from the framework end. So we cannot actually do anything for that. We can enable it, and sometimes there are some things we can upgrade, but the implementation is coming from the framework side, right? So now actually we are done with, okay, that's fine. So we are done with this assistant, right? The basic assistant is created here. We are all good. But there will be some changes, like I will show you what kind of changes that we can do for this in order to upgrade this assistant. But for now, in order to get a basic assistant, we are all good up to here. I'll give the code later and I'll give some time to try this out. But before that, let me complete one more step, right? So assistant is also, as I mentioned, it's a top level container. It's kind of like a page, right? So if we want to access a assistant, what we need to do is we need to have a navigator entry for that. So using a navigator entry, we could access this assistant, and from that we can process with our work, right? So if you want to access a assistant, if you want to get an assistant up and running, what we can do is we can add an entry to the navigator, and from that we can access this assistant, which is a top level container. So let me show you how we can add a entry if you want to access a navigator, or if you want to access a assistant through a navigator. So same like what we did for pages, we can go for the navigator level, navigator entries level. Didn't we have it here? Mm, okay, here we have. So we have navigator entries here. So I'm going to add a new entry, which I can keep under maybe manage geographies nav entry. So we have the route navigator, right? So we have the manage geographies nav entry. And for that one, I'm going to add as a sub entry or child entry, maybe something like this. I'm going to get a previous implemented code because otherwise it will take a lot of time, right? So, and you're currently aware of how to adding an entry to, so I'm not going to create it from the scratch, but let me point out some highlighted point, or maybe some important point of this adding entry part. So what will happen here is I will be adding an entry which is TRN country assistant nav entry, and I'm using the parent as TRN ENT navigator route, manage geographies nav entry. So under that, I'm going to add the sub entry. And what will we have here is, which we need to highlight is, when we are creating a page. So when we are adding a page to a navigator entry, we use the page keyword and then we connected our page to that keyword. But when we are working with assistant, what we need to use is this assistant keyword. We have to have the assistant keyword, and then only we can use this assistant name with that. Create country assistant. So just make sure that we are using the same name here. Right. Okay. So if we are going to add an entry that we are trying to use for an assistant, we have to make sure that we are connecting our assistant to the entry using this assistant keyword. Assistant, and then we can have our assistant name to that. Then only we will be able to connect our assistant to our navigator entry. So what I will do is I will first save this, and then I will go back to the projection file, and I will generate code and deploy with dependents. So I don't want actually the manage companies for now. I only want manage geographies. So I will be deploying these two um, projection and the client to the database. So it's being deployed now. So let's wait until it being deployed to the database. And after that, actually, I'll give the code too, right? So you can deploy the enterprise handling projection first. Let me deploy this. Right. And then I will be deploying the manage geographies one. Okay. We are able to deploy them both to the database without any issue. Now, if I go to my client application and if I refresh this, let's go to manage geographies main entry, and under that you should be able to see something new here as add country assistant. So if you click on that, okay, I think it's not properly refreshed or something. Maybe I'll log out and I'll get back to here. Okay, why we are getting such issue? Maybe I'll close this. Okay, let me refresh this as well. I'm not sure whether it might be the issue too. Right. Let me get that refresh one. Okay, I think it's in here. Let me refresh all the things. and then let me refresh the shell. Okay, now it's working, right? So you will be able to see the assistant that we have created, right? So we have the country ID, country, and if you go for the next, then you can see the list. So by clicking on that, we can add country area information to this list. So what we can do is, guys, now I'll give you some time, and also I'll give you the code too. So try to work with that and try to get this up and running. So you can see now we have previous, we have next, and we have finish, we have cancel buttons, all the things, right? So if I go for finish, you will be able to see that there is a message like process completed. Or else if I go for cancel, you can see that it's mentioning as cancelled, right? So first of all, I'll give you kind of a, I'll give all the code in the chat as well as in the shared location, so you can get them from there and try to implement this assistant in your VMs as well. So maybe I can share all the things here. So I have given the virtuals, but let me add these things again. Mm, right. So maybe in my new folder day 8, under day 8 here I'll give the code, right? So I will be having all the virtuals there. Maybe I'll point what is the file that you need to add those things as well, just in case. So these things you need to add for enterprise handling. Dot projection file. And you need to have the entity set as well. So maybe I'll add that part too. And then, yeah, is there anything I missed here? No, right? Okay. Then we are getting to the manage geographies. So let me have the note here as manage geographies window that you need to add these things, right? The following things. There we can add the entry part. Let me add. Right. Then other than that, so we have added the entry, and along with that, let me add the groups. And then I'll add the list. And then let me add the assistant. Right. So just in case, guys, when you're trying these out, sometimes there might be cache issues. What I got. So you can just use this clearing projection cache one, And you can try this syntax by replacing your projection VM number with the projection name, right? Maybe you can just leave here as all, then it will refresh, right? So what I will do is I'm not going to give the whole code in the chat because otherwise it might take some time to copy all these things. So what we can do is, since I have shared all the things in the public share, and I'll give you the way you can access it too. So you can get the code from there and try this out, right? Okay, so I'll give you some time. After that, we'll discuss some things that we can modify and how to upgrade this assistant, and what are new things that we have to look into when we are working with assistant, right? Okay, so take your time, try to implement this, and once you're done, maybe you can give me a raise of hand as well. And if you have any question, you can let us know too.
Tiny, can I have a question?
Yes.
I,
Yes,
I
Jonas.
okay. I have actually managed to get it up and running, but I have some strange strings. So when I wasn't able to finish. The finish button wasn't active or it wasn't enabled. And
Okay.
when I said cancel, then now I'm trying to run again, and I cannot enter anything in the first step. So the fields are not
Charles,
enabled.
can you share the screen? Shall we have a look then?
Yes.
So you can share the screen and
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
have a
trying.
look if there anything.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
Can you try now?
Yes.
Right, it's loading for me. Give me a moment. Okay, I can see now. Right.
So first it worked. I could enter some values and went to the next step, and I created a new line, entered some values, but then the finish was not active, and I canceled. And now I pushed, clicked on run again, and then this is what I'm getting now.
Okay. Can we do a refresh on your cache?
Sure.
Maybe it will.
Actually,
Did you try it out?
I had to do the cache because I got the same error message that you got too. So I did, but we can do it. It's
Yeah,
like
you can
this,
try
right?
it again. Maybe you can go for all channels, like without specifically mentioning the projection file.
Like
Just
this?
we'll have no the star mark.
Like this?
Yeah, then you can enter it. Right. Shall we get back to the application and shall we refresh our client?
Okay, it's much better
Now
now.
it's working, right?
Yes, but it was like this first time
Yeah.
too. So if I try it like this, you see finish is grayed out.
Okay.
And if I say cancel now, that's the only one thing I can do. Run again, and it's the same. Okay.
Okay, right. You are getting back the same issue, right?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe due to a cache issue, Janos, because like when we are doing the cache refresher, we could get that, right? And I'm not sure why your finish button is not enabled when in the second step. Can you just show me the code for a moment, Janos, if it's possible?
Sure. Would you like to have
Currently, it's an
control?
okay. It's an maybe can you show me? Yeah, I'm not sure whether like my connectivity is also not that much of a strong. So can you go to the assistant? Right, you have make it as enable true. Okay, Janus, like actually there are some upgrading parts that we will be doing as the next steps. So let's try those parts as well and see whether you still getting these issues, right? Sometimes like while once we upgrade this assistant with kind of like I'm planning to give some validations because now at this point like even though we are not entering any value to our steps, still we could finish, right? So it's not like possibly like we should not make sure like give that opportunity to the end user to go for the finish if we are not like entering any values to the field. So I'm planning to give some upgrading parts to this code. So once we done with that, let's try let's check whether you are getting the issues like what you are getting now. Okay.
Okay, good.
Hopefully it will be sort out at that point. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can stop sharing my screen now.
Yeah, you can stop sharing and I'll share my screen, Janos. Right. So how about others? Anyone having any issues while you're trying to get this up and running? Sometimes you might be getting that cache issue. So the best thing is you can use that shared clearing projection cache syntax. And maybe I'll give this in the chat too. So for the projection name, either you can use the enterprise handling projection, or maybe you can just use the all, right? And you can try this out. Anyone having any difficulty while they are trying this out? How about Cassiano? Luca, do you get any issues? So
Nope, no issues.
all good from your end, right?
Yeah, good.
Okay. Okay. So for G1, it's working, right?
Yep, it's working for me. If you
Okay.
hit the done, you'll get uh, the finish button get enabled.
Okay. Right. Right. Okay. So what we can do is now, anyone else having any issues? And I hope all of you are good. Then maybe we could continue. Right. So let me get back to the point that we were looking into. Okay, so as I mentioned now, I will be like showing you some things that we can do, right? And in this part, like modification that we can do, right, for this assistant. And also there are some more points that we need to look into too when we are working with this. So what we can do is mm, okay, let's try to upgrade this one, and there are some things that we can do by upgrading this. Right, so when we are looking into the assistant now, you can see when we are working here, we could enter data, and yeah, if I get back to the client, oh, it's like this been stuck. Right. So let's try to do kind of a debugging and see what kind of things are going on here as network calls, and what kind of things that we can investigate when we are doing this, right? So because like when you are working on these assistants, we should be aware like how these calls are going on and what are the things being called and how we can continue to the next point. So these things we should make sure that we are like having kind of an idea. So let's try to now do kind of a debugging part and see how these calls are going on and what are the information that we can look into, like those things. Let's try now. So the first thing I will show you, like we'll go for our more tools, and I'm going to get the developer tools, right? So maybe I'll keep it somewhere around here. Now what I will do is let me add a value to country ID and country. Maybe something like we originally having India, Sri Lanka, and Sweden. So let's add something like German. So I'll add it as JE, and here, or maybe like China. We previously also used it, right? So CH, and for the country, let's add it as China. Right. Now here, you should be able to see it's kind of a blank one. Now what I will do is, once I have added this value, I'll click on this next button, which is enabled now, right? I'm going for this next button. Then we'll have a look. Now there are some things going on here. So you can see there is a specific call going, and there are some information here that is going on with an object key, and for the payload we have information. So there are some information, and it's a patch. It means that we are trying to add kind of a data, right? So next part is what I will do is okay. Before going into that, let's have a look on this. So there are some actually important things I want to show here. So in this first call, when we try to add the country ID and country, so you can see in header we have a patch, right? In header we have a patch, and then if we go to the next part here, so you can see the payload information as what we are trying to send, right? So China and the country ID and the country information. Now the thing is, let's try to add something here too. And for the area ID, I will go with something like area 1 and area. So in my scenario, so I'm making it done here, and then I'm making it as finish. Right? Okay, now it completed. So let's go back to the developer tools, and you will be able to see there are some couple of things, calls are going on here. So this was the first one, and after that we are getting something, a get call here. So if you can see here, we are getting a get one. It means what will happen here is when we are trying to get to this point in it means when we are going to the next option here for the country ID, for the basic like country ID that we have entered here. Let's go with China once again. And if I go for the next, so sometimes like there might be some set of data that we have here. So what will happen in this point is, so they are like kind of like getting an population, whether for that particular country do we have data for that. Like that way, there is a get call going on, right? So I'm not going for that. But if you go for here, you can see that there is a get call is going on too. And there we are trying to get some object key, and there are some information fetching from the database. And if you go to the areas, now it's a post. You can see here, because we are trying to save data. And for that, if I get the general one here, so there is an object key passing, and if we go to the payload, there will be some information that I could show you. Let's go to the payload. Okay, so in payload, you will be able to see that there are some information here with parent object key. So why we are getting this parent object is because this area is kind of like having a relationship with country. So depend on the country information, we are entering this data. So because of that relationship, for the parent object key, we will be having a value, right? We have the country ID, area information. Along with that, you can see the request going on the attribute string. We have the parent object key. So why we are having this parent object key? Because there is a relationship with the parent logical unit. So that when we are trying to look into here, you will be able to see that you will be getting a parent object key along with this. And again, it's going for a get, and there are if we go for headers, so you can see there are some posts going on. And this is kind of like an, I think, issue that we had. Okay, so again we are having get calls, and here we have patch when we are trying to add a record. So there are some information that you can see from this point. So here we are having a object key, and if you go to the payload, you can see that we have the parent object key mapped here too. So maybe can you also try this out? So what you can do is you can simply go for add a country ID here and country information, and make sure that your developer tool is open, right? So you can get your developer tool somewhere around in your window, and while you are keeping it, did I minimize this? Okay. So while you are keeping this, you can try to add a record and see how this object key being mapped to, right? I'll give you around 1 to 2 minutes. So try that out as well. After that, we'll continue with the next point. So there are some information that I'm planning to show you. But before that, try to get the developer tool and see how these calls are going on and how these object keys being referenced and know the things too, right? After that, we'll continue to the next point. Okay, so let me show you something that we are looking into here. So yesterday, if you can remember, now I mentioned that when we create virtuals, there will be temporary tables being created. Even though they are mentioning it as temporary tables, still like they will they are normal like the other tables too. But the thing is, we hold data in those tables temporary. That's the thing actually. The specific reason of those virtual tables. So if I show you this here, so maybe I can get it from the generated files. Let's go to our um, enterprise handling SVC file. So if you go here, you will be able to see the virtual file that we have for the virtual. We have a table created as enterprise handling. Okay, enterprise handling TRN country virtual VRT. So I'm going to get that, and I'm trying to do kind of a select statement to see what are the data in that. So for that, I'll got a execute command. Here I'm having a select statement. And let's try to execute this and see whether we are getting any kind of output, right? So let's see. Now the call is going on. Okay. So you will be able to see some data being added here. So you can see I have added to China. That's why it's here. So along with that, some information being mapped here. Maybe you can also try the same select statement and see whether your data being copied here or not, right? So I'll give this in the chat. So in your developer studio, you can try this out. So you can see that for that particular two entries, we have object keys, two different object keys. And for those, we have country ID as CH, country as China, an object created by so the user IFS app. And these are not connected to any kind of parent logical unit because the country logical unit here in country is not connected to any parent logical unit, so that there will no parent object keys being mapped here, and obj modified, it means the timestamp, right? So those information is mapped here. So let me quickly get the other one as well. So we have now two virtuals. One is for the enterprise handling TRN country, other one is the area. So let's try to get that as well. And see what kind of data in it. Right. So let's try to see whether we are able to get some data for that. Okay. You will be able to see that for particular China value, here you will be getting some information. So we have the object ID, and for that it's been connected to a parent object key because this is connected with the country ID, so that here we have the parent object key being mapped, and the country ID information and the other information is here. So area ID and area information. So like that way, when you are working with the assistant, those data is copied to these virtual temporary tables. Maybe you could try this out as well. I'll give this in the chat too. So these things can be checked, like we can have a select statement and check whether how this parent object key is being mapped, how these object key mapped, so how these values being mapped, all the information we can get from our these two temporary tables which are getting created. But the thing is, when we are looking into here now, we are adding a country ID, country information, and we are going for the next. And here we are giving country information, and once it's done, we could go for finish. But when you're finishing this work, we should make sure that we are copying the data from the temporary table to the permanent tables. Because when we are using this assistant, we might be using this assistant in order to add country information along with the area information. So in order to do that, we should copy that data to the necessary logical units when we are clicking on this finish button, right? So there are some things we need to do in order to get those kind of things. It means we have to do some implementation to get this information copied to the necessary logical units, and also framework help us in these points too. It means just like when you are working here, it's not like we have to do all the work. Framework too helping us something. So with the help of framework and all the things, we could try this out, right? So the basic scenario that what we are trying to do here is when we are finishing off the process, we should make sure that we are copying data from the temporary tables to the permanent tables. It means to the necessary logical units. In order to do that, we have to do a implementation. So I will show you how to do the implementation and I will explain those things. And also we'll get the help of framework as well. Right. So let me now go to that point, how we can implement this code. Now, at this point, what we are doing is we are trying to get the data copied from a temporary table, and we are trying to add data to a new database location or to add to a new table. So we are kind of doing a change to the database. So if we are looking into the projection side, if we are going to do a change to the database, what we should use? Are we going to use a function or are we going to use action?
Action.
Any guesses? Action, exactly. So if you are going to do kind of a change to the database, is right. So action is the best option that we are having in order to do the change to the database. It's not mentioning like we cannot use function to do database changes. Like there is no restriction, but as a standard, normally functions are being used in order to query data from the framework, query data from the database, and actions we are normally using in order to do kind of a change to the database. So what we are going to do here is now I'm going to do kind of like an action, or I'm going to do kind of a database change. I'm going to copy some data from one table to another table so that I'm going to use an action. In this point, actually what I will do is I'm going to use a bound action, right? So bound actions, they are bounded with logical units. So I'm going to use a bound action in this point. So how I'm going to have a bound action, let me show you. So we can get back to our virtual, which is TRN country virtual. So I'm going to use that. And for this virtual, I'm going to have a bound action. So what I will do is I will be adding an action to this point. Action. And for this, I'll give something like create countries areas, something like that, right? Just a name. I'm giving here. Right. So I'm getting an error because it's not yet implemented, right? I'm just defining a bound action in this point as a create countries areas. And then what I can do is I will be generate this skeleton. So I mentioned that there will be kind of like messages. So currently there is no PLSPC file created for this enterprise handling. So we're asking whether like do we want to create it? Yes. And there will be another message that asking us whether we want to generate the skeleton. Yes. So there will be again that same message will be popped up because I mentioned that there is a kind of a bug here in our tool. So we could use no here in the second message. So now you can see we have the procedure create countries areas. So since this is a bound action, so you will be able to see that keys are automatically being mapped here. So whenever like we are going for bound actions or bound functions, normally as for the parameters, we will be getting keys. So in TR and country virtual key, that we will be mapping the keys of that. So we are going to like it's automatically actually mapping the keys related to that virtual, right? So in our virtual, here what we have created, so that being created in this location. So currently we don't have any kind of implementation. Maybe I could have this as null, right? Just for a moment, because I'll show you how to do the implementation later, but let's keep it like that. And I'll save it. Right, now the error is not popping, right? Okay, now let's have a discussion what we are trying to do in this point, right? So what I will trying to do is I'm going to use this action and I'm trying to copy data from one location to another location. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So using the procedure that is being generated in our enterprise handling PLSVC file, I'm trying to copy some set of records from the temporary memory location, temporary table to the ideal locations. So for that one, actually, I'll first give you the code, guys. And after that, I'll give you some time to try this out. Then what you can do is you can try the code and like you can try and after that we can actually discuss how this code been there and what kind of things that we can learn from that code. But before that, I'll show you actually what kind of things that you need to implement in order to get this functionality up and running. So I'll keep this procedure for a moment like this. And what I will do is actually I will be creating new procedures in my TRN country and TRN area logical units, right? So in my TRN logical unit and TRN area logical unit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new procedure, right? So I'm going to create two new methods, two public methods in TRN country and TRN area. And there I'm going to actually like implement a small code. And after that, I'll show you how we are connecting these things together. So let's go to TRN country. We have the PLSQL file. So in there, in the public section, what I will do is I will be adding a code there. So we have it here, right? Do we? Yeah, we have it here already. So I'm not sure whether in your scenarios also you are having this like this, right? What we can do is, okay, let's use this, right? So sometimes you might also have this. Then what we need to edit is, so because it's already there, let's try to go for TRN area. There we haven't it. We have it. Okay, let's go to the PLSQL. Um, let's check whether we're having any public method here. Okay, we have that public method too. So in TRN country and TRN area, we have public methods as new, these procedures. So what we are going to do is we are going to use these procedures. So here it's not should be country. I think I'm the one who is added this. That's why this error is there. So I should have it as area because I'm referring TRN area tab here. So maybe I'll give this code first for all of you. So this is area and did I change it here? Yeah, this is country. In case if you don't have these things, you can first add these public methods to your TRN country and TRN area, right? So I'll add these in the public share document. So this should be added to the TRN country PLSQL file. this particular method, and this one should be added to TRN area. If you don't have this, you have to add this to the public methods, right? We're going to have these public methods. So I hope that you are aware on what is public method means. So we can access them from anywhere uh, outside of the package or anywhere from any place we can access those public methods. So area.plsql file, you can add that code too. Right, let me save this. Now, once we're done with that part, now we have added those two codes. Now, from the procedure that we have created in our PLSVC file, I'm going to call that method. So actually there are two sections in that. So let me show you how to get that part. If we go here, I'll give the implementation, and after that you can try that out. So in here, I should have two variables, and I'll explain them, right? How I have created these variables, all the things, right? And along with that, I will be having a code section like this. Now I'm not going to have null anymore because I'm going to implement my code here. I'm going to remove that and I'll have this here like this. Now we'll see what's come from this particular method. So here what we are doing is, now actually we have two sections in this procedure. The first section what we are trying to do in this part is, we are having this attribute string, and for that particular attribute string we are trying to get the country ID and country information, which is saved from the temporary table, and from that particular attribute string will be passed to the particular new public method. So if you can remember, we created a public method here as new. So for this public method, I'm going to call it from this enterprise handling PLSVC file. So for this ATTR, I'm passing the country ID and country information, right? So in this point, you can see that from this section, I'll explain this part later. But before that, you can see in this location, what we are trying to do is, we are first clearing the attribute string, and for that attribute string we are getting the country ID and country, and then we are calling that public method which we have declared in our trn country PLSQL file. Then if we go to the next point, so I'll explain this part later too, but the other part here is, we are clearing the attribute string, and then we will be getting the data, country ID, area from the table, temporary table. And again, we are calling the public method new, which is in TRN area API in this part. Right? Okay. Now, what we can do is, now as you know that in the first section, we know that it's related with the country information that we are passing. In the second one, what we are trying to do here is, we are sending the area information from temporary table to the relevant TRN API package table. In order to do that, we are having these new methods. So if you investigate on new method, there we are calling the insert method to insert those data that is coming, that we are passing using the attribute string. But the thing is, now if I go on top of here, you can see that I'm creating a variable country rec with the type of trn country virtual rec. So this is something that we haven't declared in our code. We haven't created any kind of a record type in our code as trn country virtual rec. So where this is coming from then? If we haven't declared this kind of a record, or if we haven't declared anything, but still if it's working in our code, what will happen is actually we have to go into our base layer, because if we are using something, but if we are not the one who have declared them, probably you will be able to see them in the base layer file. So if you go to the base layer, and what I will do is I will get a copy of it here, this trn country virtual rec. And if I search it here, you will be able to see from the framework itself, they are like declaring a record type known as trn country virtual rec, right? So it's declared in the below layer, in the base layer. So you can see that there is by default a record type being declared from the framework as trn country virtual. So this is actually generated from the framework. So what we can do is we can use this record type in our implementation. So why this being generated? It because we have created a virtual, right? We have created a virtual known as trn country virtual, so that when we are generating file set from the framework, we are getting this record type generated according to that virtual. So that's why we are getting something like this trn country virtual rec. So like when we want to save records for trn country virtual, this record type can be used. Now the thing is, if we go back here, now you can see that we will be using another method known as get record, right? So what we are using here is this get record to fetch data from the temporary record, right? So from the temporary created table, we are trying to fetch record. So in order to fetch that record, we are passing the key that we are getting from our procedure. By passing that, we are trying to get that record using this get record method, and from that we are going to get that value into the record country rec, which is the trn country virtual record type, right? So using that, what we are trying to do is we are trying to fetch the record using this get record method. By using the keys, we are trying to fetch the record from the temporary table, and we are trying to get it to the country rec. So this get record method is also not something that we haven't declared. So if we go back to the base, let me get a copy of this. And if we go to PLSVC file here, and if we search for that, you will be able to see that there will be a function generated from the framework as get record. So based on the key that we are passing for this function, we are returning the record trn country virtual record type. And from here, what we are doing is we are trying to get the record, and using that object key, we are trying to get that record into this rec we are that passing, or that we are returning from this get record method, right? So whenever we are creating a kind of a virtual, we will be getting a function created as get record in order to fetch value from that temporary created table, right? So when we are creating a virtual, there will be a function generated as get record all the time, and there we will be mapping keys. So what will happen is using this method, this function, we could fetch record from the temporary table, and we can get them to a string or to a record type. Right. Now let's go to the next part. Here. Now we are done with the country part. So other part, I hope that you are clear with it, because we are clear in the attribute string, and from the record that we are getting here, we are adding them to the attribute string, and we are passing it to this trn country API new public method, and we are passing the attribute string for that. If we go to the area section, now you know that when we are looking into the area for a specific country ID, there might be multiple areas that we are trying to enter for that. There might be multiple areas. So that what will happen here is, actually it's kind of like an array that we are trying to get. So this get areas, that is something also created in framework. So if we quickly go to that part in our PLSCC file, let me show you. So if we search it here, you will be able to see that there is a cursor named with get areas. So what will happen here is, because of the reference that we have created, if you could remember, when we are creating the enterprise handling projection, we created a reference between TRN country and TRN area. So that when we are creating this reference, what happened is we could actually get a cursor created from the framework, right? There will be a cursor generated from the framework due to the array reference. From that, what we can do is we could go through a loop, and we can get all the records related to that specific country ID. So you can see that there is a for loop going on here, and inside of that we are using this cursor, and from that we are like fetching values. So you can see that we are fetching values by passing the parent object key, right? Here, by passing it, we are trying to fetch value, and I'm going to use it in my for rec here, for area rec. So I'm getting data, and I'm passing it into this attribute string here. And at the end, once I'm done with that, by adding these things to the attribute string, I'm calling the trn area API new method. Again, I'm going through the for loop, and I'm checking whether is there any other kind of remaining area information for this particular country ID. If so, again, I'm going through the same process, and I will be copying it to the trn area tab. Like that way, here in this section, we are going through a loop, and we are trying to get all the records copied to the necessary table. Hope it's clear for you all. Is that clear for all of you? Any questions from this part? Maybe I'll give this code first, so you can try this out, and if you have any question, you can let me know, right? So I'll give this in this section. I'll get a copy of this, and I'll save it. So based on the way that you have given your names, that framework generated things will be created. So sometimes that you have given names which are different from mine. So make sure that you are rename those things, guys, right? Okay, so I have added the necessary code in the shared location. So you can try that out. And did I give you all the information on that? Okay, so still we haven't complete yet, right? So we have created the action here. Maybe I'll give that part too. I'm not sure whether I have given that. If not, so then you can refer to that part as well. Right. Did I give it for all of you? No, right? Okay, so I will be adding it in this location. So we have to edit the virtual, right? After editing the virtual, we can add the 2 public new methods and we can go with the rest of the implementation too. So once you're done, make sure you first deploy TRN country and TRN area entities. Then you can deploy the projection file enterprise handling. After that, you can deploy the client file too and see whether what kind of change being applied, right? So there are some more things actually I want to show regarding upgrading of this code. But before that, maybe you can also try this out. I'll wait for another 1 to 2 minutes. So first, deploy TRN country. And then you have to deploy TRN area because we have done some changes to those two. And then you can deploy enterprise handling, generate code and deploy. And then you can deploy the manage geographies 1, 2. Right. I'll be on mute and the code is provided here, guys, right? Maybe once you're done deploying these things to your database, you can give me a raise of hand. Actually, there are some things that I want to show you in the assistant, like some things that we can do in order to beautify the assistant and to validate it. So once you're done with the code, I'll show you how to beautify this as well, right? Okay. Yep. Any question?
Well, yes.
Yeah, Charles,
I
go
I
ahead.
went a little bit forward and attached this new action to the assistant to see the actual result. And what I found that okay, assistant was done. In theory, it created my goal, my country and areas. But I went to the in the navigator to the countries page. I couldn't
Okay.
see it. Well, perhaps I should have refreshed. I kind of automatically assume that it refreshes when I just go to the page. Okay, that might have been a problem because when later I refreshed 2 seconds later, it was there. Okay, I think it's my
Okay.
bad. Okay,
All right. That's
thank you.
fine, Charles. Okay, no worries. Right. So actually, what we are going to do is now we are going to connect our action to the assistant. Right now, that's the remaining part that we need to do, because still we are not able to get the full output from what we have done. We have created a way that we can copy data from the temporary location or the temporary table to the new table or to the specific tables. But the thing is, actually, even though we have created that part, or if we have mapped that procedure, still we haven't made a place that where we have to invoke this. Now, in order to do that, what I will do is I will be connecting this procedure to my assistant. So for that, what I will do is I will get him back to my client file here. So under the finish step, so when we are finishing the assistant, what I will do is I will be having a execute section at this point, right? Because I want to call that particular action that we have created, so that when we are finishing off our work, what I will do is I will be having a execution, or I will be having an execute block, and inside of that I will be calling my method, which is let's get all the things copied, otherwise I might make some mistakes. So it's in the PLSCC file, create countries area. So I'm getting this. Maybe in my virtual. Okay, this one will be better. So otherwise I have to remove all the underscores there. Right. So here, if you go to the client file, I'm going to call that action now. Right. From here, I'm going to call the action that we have connected to our virtual. So from here, what we will be calling is the method that we are having here, the procedure. And from here, you can see that there are some couple of calls going to relevant API packages. One is for going for the TRN country API, and the other one is going for the TRN area API. So then if I get back to the client, so I mentioned that there will be like I will be showing you some kind of beautifications we can add, or maybe like validations that we can handle with our assistant. So let me show you that part too. And yeah, I'll give this part as well in the code section. Let me get to the client. It's still stuck or something like laggy. Give me a moment, guys. I'll get back to that point. Right. So what I will do is now we have created or like we have connected our action. But along with that, there are some more things that I'm planning to do. So what I can do is I can actually do kind of a validation. It means now when I'm stepping from the first step to the second step using the next button, what I can do is I can actually do kind of a validation, whether only if I have filled my country ID and country fields, then only that next button should be enabled. Something like that I could handle here. So in order to do that, what I can do here is I'm going to add a command. I can actually customize the next command, right? So I'm going to add that. We have the framework method, but I'm going to customize it. In there, what I will do is I will be making it enable only if country field and area field get values. Then I can get the copy of here, I guess. Yeah. So if I get value for country ID, it means I can check whether if it's not null or whether it's null or not. So I'm making this enable only if they are not null, right? So I can have not operator equal null. So this is how we can check whether a field is not null or not. Then we can have and I will be checking whether my country field is null or not. So I'm going to use the same kind of scenario here and not equal null like this. So I'm making it enable only if I'm having this country ID and country. And let's assume now I want to give kind of a message to the user when we are uh, stepping from the first step to the second step. Then I can have execute section. And there I can give kind of like an information message. Info message. And inside of that, I can write something like step 1 is done. Something like that. Kind of a beautification, right? Okay. If we are going to the next part now, I have done handling the step 1. Then if we go to the step 2, let's see what kind of things we can do there. Let's keep the list 2 or the step 2 as this. We don't need to do anything there. Maybe sometimes we not specifying the areas relevant to that country, so we can just keep it blank and go for the next. So we're not going to worry for the step 2, but there will be another kind of thing that I'm going to do. I can do kind of a modification to my finish command. There what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this bit or make this edit comment out, and there I'm going to do this enabling part only if if we are in the create country assistant or this assistant part, if we are in the only step 2, then I'm going to active this finish command, or I'm going to enable the finish command. And also I'm going to check whether this trn area value list is empty. If then I'm not going to get this finish enable. So what I will do is I'll get something like this. So I have actually a predefined code, so I'll share it with you all too, right? Let me give that. Otherwise, there might be mistakes that we might done. Right? So what we can do here is, let me explain that part as well before going to the break, right? So here what I'm doing is, just without making the finish command true, rather than doing so, what I'm checking here is I'm checking whether my assistant, country assistant in the active step 2. It means whether we are in the step 2. So this active step is a property that we can use with assistant. So component means the application, right? Component here we are specifying as the application. So in the application, we are going for the element create country assistant, and there if we are in the active step 2, and also if we are not keeping this area virtual list empty, then only we are enabling the finish command. That's what we are trying to do from this point, right? So I'll give this full code in the, because I have done some changes and I have done some upgradings. So let me give this in the chat, and also let me give this in shared location too. So I'll put kind of a comment here like upgraded one or something like that. Graded assistant. And there I'm going to have the code, right? So you can get the code from that point. Right, so with that actually we are finishing off the assistant. So maybe we can go for the break as well. So what you can do is you can try this code out and deploy the necessary files and see whether you will be able to get the relevant output from your um, assistant, right? So once we get back from the break, I'll also show you what kind of an output that we get. But when we are looking into the implementation section, we have already completed the things that we want to do for the assistant, or the implementation part, it is completed, right? Okay, so then maybe we could go for a around 25 minutes. So because there is something that you can attend as well. So let's go for a 25-minute break. And after that, we'll continue with the discussion, right? Okay, so hope to see you all in 25 minutes. Bye for now.